Yeah, very much so. She's an amazing mum and an amazing wife, and literally our family couldn't cope without it. So she's been absolutely stunning, really has.
It's been a very difficult time back then with the kids as well, and seeing her being able to sort of fulfil those duties must have made you feel very happy.
Yeah, very much so. She's an amazing mum and an amazing wife, and literally our family couldn't cope without it.
Prince William was sitting in a beachside café in the Isles of Scilly, holding a mug of builder's tea, laughing about Louis leaving jam fingerprints all over the car, and somewhere across the country, every major newsroom in Britain was about to detonate. Because at almost the exact same moment William went live on national radio with Heart FM's Amanda Holden and Jamie Theakston on May 22nd, news broke that the police investigation into Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor had been widened to include sex crimes. And William knew. He had been told hours before the broadcast that this story was coming. He went ahead anyway. That decision alone tells you everything about where this man's head is right now and what he is quietly building toward. But we are going to get to all of that. First, we need to talk about what he actually said, because William said some things in that cafe that I do not think many people clocked properly in the moment, about Catherine, about the cancer, about how close this family came to falling apart completely. Stay right here, because this one matters. For anyone outside the United Kingdom who has never heard of the Isles of Scilly, picture this, a cluster of tiny islands sitting about 28 miles off the tip of Cornwall, no traffic lights, barely any roads, the kind of place where children cycle to the corner shop alone and nobody thinks twice about it, crystal clear water, beaches that look like they belong somewhere warmer, a place that still runs at a pace the rest of Britain has largely forgotten. William has been coming here since he was a child. His parents brought him, and if you know anything about William's childhood, you understand why that detail carries more weight than it first appears. The Isles of Scilly was one of the few places where Charles and Diana could take their boys somewhere genuinely simple. No enormous formal estate, no state occasion, just the sea and whatever a family of four could manage to pass off as an ordinary holiday. He still comes back. He swam without a wetsuit the night before this interview. His exact words were, "It was fresh, but it was okay," which tells you something about his stubbornness that will become relevant again shortly when we get to the helicopter. But here's something the coverage largely skipped over. William was not on the Isles of Scilly for the radio interview. He was there to work. Specifically, he was there in his role as Duke of Cornwall to open a new wing at St. Mary's Hospital, a community-led redevelopment that brings NHS and social care services together on the islands for the first time, supported by the Duchy of Cornwall. People on the islands had been traveling to the mainland for routine care for years. That journey, William said, is a nightmare for families out there. He helped fund and push through the solution. That context matters. He did not fly down there to do a feel-good radio spot. He flew down there to do duchy business. Actually, William personally invited them. He sent the presenters a video message in advance that said, essentially, "I'm heading down to the Isles of Scilly on Friday, Amanda. I know how fond you are of Cornwall. It would be lovely if you could both come along." Heart FM is not a niche station. As of 2025, it is the UK's biggest commercial radio brand, with 13.4 million weekly listeners. The Heart Breakfast Show with Jamie Theakston and Amanda Holden is the biggest commercial breakfast show in the country, with 4.3 million people tuning in every week. For context, that is more breakfast listeners than BBC Radio 1. This was a very, very large platform.
And William arrived hoarse, having celebrated Aston Villa's Europa League final win with perhaps slightly more enthusiasm than the future King of England strictly should.
That strike was amazing. The last time I have it used and the sacrifice. He was already celebrating before he got anywhere near the edge, so he was going to go in. Both hands. Push them in. You ready?
More on that shortly, too. He walked into a beach café called Dibble and Grub, accepted a cup of tea with no sugar, insisted he had given the tea bag a really good squish, and proceeded to do something very few working royals do with any consistency. He was just a person.
Where's the man? Oh,
Well, I'm bringing the tea.
Okay, perfect.
I gave the tea bag a really good squish.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda.
Do you take sugar?
I don't take sugar, no.
Okay,
Thank you.
Is
Good
that
to
about
know.
the right colour? It's Builders.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Not performing personhood, not giving the careful, pre-approved answers you get when a royal has been media trained within an inch of their life. He was genuinely relaxed. He made the jokes first. He second-guessed himself mid-sentence. The whole thing felt, oddly, like eavesdropping on someone's actual morning. That is not a coincidence. William has been moving deliberately in this direction for years, toward a version of the monarchy that is more open, more present, more willing to let the public past the gates. But what came out in that café on May 22nd was more raw than the format usually allows. About halfway through the interview, Amanda Holden asked William about Italy. Catherine had just returned from Reggio Emilia, her first overseas working trip in 3.5 years, the first since her cancer diagnosis became public in March 2024. She met with early years education researchers, she gave a speech, and she apparently dusted off some Italian that William had absolutely no idea she still had. He admitted on air that he genuinely did not know she spoke it. He said she must have dusted that off from a while ago. There is something worth sitting with there. After everything of the last 2 years, Catherine went through cancer treatment and came out of it not simply returning to the surface, but throwing herself forward at full speed. She was not simply resting during those months, she was preparing, getting ready to come back at a standard she had set for herself long before she got ill. Then Amanda Holden asked the question that produced the moment of the whole interview.
It must have been a very difficult time back then with the kids as well, and seeing her being able to sort of fulfill those duties must have made you feel very happy.
Yeah, very much so. She's an amazing mum and an amazing wife, and literally our family couldn't cope without it. So she's been absolutely stunning, really has.
And she says she wants to do more of those.
Yes, I think so. It kind of just sort of edging herself back into doing more and more of those trips.
William paused. You could actually hear it. Yeah, very much so, he said. She's an amazing mum, an amazing wife, and literally our family couldn't cope without her. He caught himself partway through that sentence. If you listen back to it, he starts to say, could cope without us, the lighter version, the deflection, the line that keeps it manageable on live radio at 7 in the morning. And then he corrected it, in real time. He said, without her. That correction is the whole story. Our family couldn't cope without her. Said by a man who lost his mother when he was 15 years old, who grew up watching his own family fracture in ways that played out on every front page in the world, who has spent most of his adult life managing the emotional consequences of a childhood that was, for all its extraordinary privilege, genuinely painful in ways that never fully close. When William says his family could not cope without Catherine, he is not making a polite husband comment for the cameras. He is telling you something he has actually thought, in the quiet, in the dark, sitting next to someone who was ill. People who watched that interview in real time went quiet. Comments came in from viewers saying they teared up. People who had followed the royal family for decades saying it hit them differently than they expected. Because it did not sound like a prince speaking on behalf of the crown. It sounded like a husband who had understood something irreversible and was saying it plainly for the first time on record. She added something in Italian in Rome. He did not even know she still had it. She came back buzzing. The paperwork is stacked on her side of the bed. She is back, and he is grateful in a way he cannot quite keep composed about. Before we get to what was happening in the background while William sat in that cafe, I want to stay with the lighter parts of the interview for a moment, because they matter too, and some of them are genuinely funny.
George, the eldest, was already at boarding school the night before the interview, so Charlotte and Louis were home. William gave them a live shout-out on national radio at something approaching 7 in the morning.
Charlotte and Louis, because George is boarding last night. So Charlotte and Louis, if you're listening, make sure you're on time, please.
Yes.
Make sure you're not fighting over who's listening to what this morning.
Exactly.
It is such a specific dad thing to say. The future King of England, live on the biggest breakfast show in the country, reminding his primary school-age children not to argue over the radio. Amanda asked about the school run. Is it chaotic? Is it anything like everyone else's morning? William said there's a guitar lesson happening most mornings, which means the guitar needs to go in the car, which becomes its own negotiation because apparently the guitar and the school bag are both competing for space, and the answer to, "Are we taking the guitar?" is almost always no. Then there are the snacks. Even after breakfast, someone always needs a snack in the car. He confirmed there are usually jam sandwiches involved. And then he mentioned that Louis leaves jam fingerprints throughout the car. His word was throughout, which he followed with, which is really helpful, said completely deadpan. Prince Louis, who has become something of a national mascot for his increasingly spectacular facial expressions at every public event he attends, apparently spends car journeys doing what every other 5-year-old does, covering everything in jam. This is not a family performing relatability for a media cycle. That's just a Tuesday. Amanda also made him get up and fetch the tea before they settled in properly. He went, he came back with the mugs, he informed the table he had given the tea bag a really good squish, builder's strength, no sugar. He was pleased with himself about this. This segment of the interview sounds light, and it is, but hold this picture in your mind because we're about to talk about what was happening outside that cafe at the exact same moment, and the contrast between these two things is the whole point.
Stay with me through the next section on the Andrew story because I want to come back to something William said about Taylor Swift before this interview ended that nobody in the Royal Press Corps seemed to clock properly. It came completely out of nowhere, and it is not what you think. Now, we need to step back from the cafe and talk about what was happening in the outside world while William was discussing jam fingerprints and guitar lessons. At approximately 6 in the morning on May 22nd, hours before the Heart FM broadcast, news broke that Thames Valley Police had widened their investigation into Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor.
So we start with the breaking news. Detectives investigating Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor say they're examining a number of aspects of alleged misconduct in public office. The offence can potentially include sexual misconduct, abuse of position and corruption.
This was not a routine development. The probe had begun after Andrew's arrest in February 2026, when police raided his home at Sandringham in a pre-dawn operation on his 66th birthday. He spent around 11 hours in custody. It was front-page news across the world. The arrest itself had come following the release of Justice Department files tied to Jeffrey Epstein, which contained material that accelerated scrutiny of Andrew's conduct during his time as the UK's trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. He was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, allegedly passing confidential trade information to Epstein. But by May 22nd, the investigation had expanded well beyond that single charge. Thames Valley Police were reportedly now examining alleged sex crimes. Specifically, detectives were looking to speak with a woman who claimed she was taken to Andrew's former home at the Royal Lodge in Windsor in 2010 for what she described as sexual purposes. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner confirmed separately that his department was examining a whole range of suggested sexual allegations. King Charles, for his part, had already taken significant steps before all of this. He stripped Andrew of both his HRS title and his prince designation, formally, publicly, permanently. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor had been served notice to vacate the Royal Lodge. He is no longer inside the tent. But here is where it gets complicated and why this matters far beyond the Andrew story itself.
Royal analysts, including Tom Sykes of the Royalist Substack and Andrew Looney, who wrote the book entitled, have argued that William and Charles have not been on the same page about how to handle Andrew.
Charles was really resisting any action against Andrew, and William was really saying, you know, we have to let the police in, we have to let the police do their worst, we have to let, we have to remove all the protection from him, we have to kick him out of the tent so that he's not part of us. And if that means that he ends up in a court cell or a jail, you know, we'll have to see how the cards fall.
Charles, they say, reportedly made undertakings, possibly to the late Queen, to take care of his brother, to manage him, to keep him close enough to control. William's position, according to people close to him, has been different. Let the police in, remove the protection, let the cards fall where they fall. The complication that nobody has a clean answer for is this. In the British legal system, any criminal case involving Andrew would technically be heard before the King's Court, literally the King's Court, which means if this goes where the police are now suggesting it might go, King Charles himself becomes ensnared in a constitutional tangle that has no obvious exit. Analysts have begun, carefully, conditionally, using words like abdication pressure, not as a prediction, as a possibility, that sources close to William reportedly now acknowledge exists.
I think at this point, there is going to have to be a cover-up at some point because, it's the King's Court. If it gets to the point where there's going to be, a trial or evidence that's going to be brought up that has to be, brought to the fore and through the court system. I just don't see how you can bring it through a court system and then invoke the king and it's his court. It makes no sense.
The idea that William could find himself king not at his father's natural death, but while his father is still alive because of what Andrew's situation might force. That is what was swirling in the background on the morning of May 22nd. William knew about it. He'd been told, and he went on the radio and talked about jam fingerprints and sang along to a Ray Charles song. That is a very deliberate choice, and it tells you a great deal about the long game William is playing. Two more things from the interview that deserve attention, because each one shows you a different facet of who William actually is. Start with the football, because it is the warmer story, and the interview itself went there first. On Wednesday, May 20th, 2 days before the Heart FM broadcast, Aston Villa beat Freiburg 3-0 in the UEFA Europa League final in Istanbul. Goals from Yuri Tillemans, Emiliano Buendia, and Morgan Rogers. Villa's first major European trophy since they won the European Cup in 1982. 30 years in the making. William was, by every account, completely gone. He was filmed celebrating with both arms raised in the full grip of the moment, entirely forgetting he is the most photographed man in Britain. The following day, he saw the footage and reportedly thought, his words, stop doing that, because he had been so genuinely happy that he had forgotten, briefly, that millions of people were watching him be genuinely happy. That is such a specifically human experience, to only realize after the fact that you were fully, unselfishly yourself in public. He came to the Heart FM interview with a slightly hoarse voice from the celebrations. Amanda baked him Aston Villa-themed cupcakes. She had been up since 3 in the morning making them. He accepted them with complete sincerity and zero embarrassment. He also revealed he has a WhatsApp thread with 1 or 2 Villa players and sometimes messages them to review their performances. He was not going to say which players or what he writes, but somewhere in William's phone is a group chat where the future King of England is, apparently, critiquing professional footballers' matchday decisions. His connection to Villa goes back to an FA Cup semi-final in the year 2000.
So childhood friends of mine took me to my first Villa game when I can't remember how old I was, it was about 2000, I think. It was Aston Villa Bolton, and it was an FA Cup semi-final, and I went to watch that. And I remember sitting in there and going, this is an amazing atmosphere. All the Bromley fans were there, and I had my little claret and blue beanie on. Aww. And no one knew I was there, and I just got totally involved in the whole scene. And Paul Merson was playing at the time, and it just, the whole club just felt fantastic. I mean, it connected with me.
A childhood friend took him, and he went anonymously, just a teenager in a red beanie sitting with the Brummy fans in the stand. Nobody knew who he was. He said the atmosphere and the camaraderie of that afternoon connected with him in a way that stuck. He also mentioned Paul Merson specifically, saying that knowing the personal struggles Merson had been through and watching him play at that level, he thought, this is a club I can support. He was born in 1982, the year Villa won the European Cup. He said the history always felt close to him. That is not a man who picked a club for optics. That is someone who found something genuinely his in one afternoon in a stadium when nobody was watching. Now, the helicopter. Both the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles have reportedly asked William on separate occasions to stop flying his own helicopter. He is a qualified pilot. He spent years on search and rescue missions with the RAF and then with the East Anglian Air Ambulance. Flying is not a pastime for him. It is a serious professional competency he built over years. During the Heart FM interview, Amanda joked about whether any helicopters would be flying off the Isles of Scilly that morning given the fog. William confirmed he still flies. He did not fly on this particular trip, but yes, he flies. He will continue to fly. His father's wishes on the matter have not changed his mind.
Exactly.
Could you fly us out? Could you fly us off the island?
Would you be allowed to?
Yes, if there's a helicopter, yeah.
Do you still? Are you still?
I still fly, yeah.
Yeah. Do you fly in and out here?
I don't fly in. I have flown in and out here. I didn't fly this time around, but yes, I do fly in and out of here.
This is the same stubbornness you see in his position on Andrew. William makes up his mind about what he believes is right, and he does not bend to institutional or familial pressure to reconsider. That will make him a complicated king to manage. Whether it makes him a better one, that is a conversation the monarchy will be having for the next several decades.
Now, the Taylor Swift thing. I told you to wait for it. When Amanda asked what song to play next on the Heart FM playlist, William said Taylor Swift. Charlotte, he said, is obsessed, his word. He and Catherine took Charlotte and Louis to the Eras Tour at Wembley. They watched from a box, a long way from the stage, but the floors were shaking from tens of thousands of people dancing all at once, and the atmosphere was extraordinary. After the show, they went backstage. They met her. William confirmed it on air when pressed. Yes, they met Taylor Swift. Then, completely unprompted, he added that he was hoping there might be an invitation to her wedding to Travis Kelce.
It's a big wedding happening this summer. Have you received your invite yet?
No comment.
That was
What Graham Norton said, and that got him into a whole world of pain.
No, exactly. I've got to be careful. That feels like a showbiz excuse. It's not. I'm hoping and I'm sure there might be an invitation around, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
He said, and these are close to his actual words, I'm sure there might be an invitation around, but we'll see. He then appeared to realize he had just told the UK's biggest breakfast show that the Prince of Wales is expecting a Taylor Swift wedding invitation. There was a beat of silence, then laughter. For a man who ordinarily chooses his public words carefully, who has spent his entire adult life operating with awareness that everything he says will be reported, that was a completely unguarded moment. He was not a royal being charming. He was a dad whose daughter loves Taylor Swift and who is, frankly, excited about a possible wedding invitation. That is the version of William this interview kept returning to, the one who is genuinely there, genuinely himself, not calculating every word. Now, the scone debate. In Britain, this is a real and surprisingly heated, ongoing cultural argument. When you eat a cream tea, do you put the clotted cream on the scone first and then the jam on top, or do you put the jam first and then the cream? Devon does it cream first. Cornwall does it jam first. William is the Duke of Cornwall. There is a right answer he is expected to give. He put the cream on first. He said his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, always did it cream first. The cream goes on, then the jam on top, because cream is, as he put it, grippier and holds the jam in place. He said the Cornish jam first method makes the cream slippy and it slides off. Amanda pointed out this is the Devonian way, not the Cornish way. William was completely unbothered. His grandmother said cream first. That is the end of the conversation. There is something I find genuinely lovely about this detail. Queen Elizabeth is gone. Charles is on the throne, the monarchy is under real pressure, and William is sitting in a beach café telling the nation how his grandmother taught him to eat a scone. It is small, but it is also a thread of continuity. He is carrying something forward from her, even in something as minor as breakfast pastry etiquette. By the end of the interview, the Heart FM station director had apparently heard enough to offer William his own show. William said he would discuss contractual arrangements off-air. He was joking. Probably. Pull back from all of it. The jam, the Taylor Swift wedding, the hoarse voice, the scone, the helicopter, and you see something being built here, quietly, without a press release. William is constructing a different kind of monarchy, not through declarations or dramatic gestures, through a series of careful decisions about where to show up and how to behave when he gets there. A morning radio show in a beach cafe, an open hospital wing, an honest sentence about his wife mid-live broadcast, a red beanie at a Villa game in 2000 that nobody remembers, but him. He is doing this at the moment the institution around him is facing its most serious external threat in a generation. Andrew's situation is not going to resolve cleanly or quickly. Charles is caught in a position with no good exits, and William is sitting in that cafe, warm and real and talking about jam fingerprints on the very morning the Andrew story goes global. That is not coincidence, and it is not naive. It is a man who has thought hard about what the monarchy needs to survive what is coming, and who has decided the answer is not distance, the answer is presence. The answer is being recognizably human. He is not performing warmth. He is warm. He is not performing relatability. He genuinely does have a son who covers the car in jam. But he is also choosing, deliberately, strategically, to let people see those things. Because the relationship between the crown and the public runs on emotional trust, and emotional trust cannot be manufactured. It can only be earned, repeatedly, in small moments. What he said about Catherine, our family couldn't cope without her, was not a prepared line. You do not prepare that line. You only say it if you have sat in rooms where the alternative felt real. And he corrected himself, live, in front of 4.3 million people, because the honest version of that sentence mattered more than the easy version. I keep coming back to that. A man that controlled, that aware of every camera pointed at him since birth, choosing in that moment to say the real thing. The second is what this interview tells us about what is coming. Andrew's situation is widening. The pressure on King Charles is not going away, and William is already, quietly, building the version of himself that the country will need when things get harder. Not through announcements, through moments like this one. So here is what I want to know from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think William going ahead with this interview, knowing the Andrew bombshell was about to hit, was the right call? Was it courage? Was it strategy? Or was it both? Because I genuinely do not think the answer is straightforward, and I would love to know where you land on it. If you are not yet subscribed to Amelia Palace Reports, please do hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover the royal stories that actually matter, the ones underneath the headlines. And the Andrew situation is far from over. You will want to be here for the next development. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I will see you in the next one.